It'll be a good one.
It'll be a good one.
Definitely a different type of process.
Cut down or freeze up.
Jackson is working. They can do here. What still in the place? I get by 10. Oh!
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Hitting Zone podcast. That's where we take tough subjects, we talk about them, we crush those topics. And if you would like, you can follow me on Instagram, X/Twitter, TikTok. That's where I'm doing my best work right now, is on TikTok. TikTok's at the Hitting Zone STL. Instagram is at my _MTS performance. That is my performance page where you can see kind of some of the free material that I give out to you athletes in case you want to work out with me later. And don't forget, on Twitter, it's Hitting Zone STL, capital H, capital Z, capital STL. Big shout out Game 7 Baseball for their support of YBM, supportive of the Hitting Zone and the things that we do. Game 7 Baseball has their spring and summer schedule out, so make sure you go sign up for those so that you can get your discounts. Big shout out to Prime Sports Midwest. I know that they had some issues with some of the weather recently out of their St. Peter store, so make sure you go over to Prime Sports Midwest, shop with them, shop local, get that gear in your hands so that you can try it on, test it, versus trying to buy something online, get it, don't like it because they smashed your $250 glove with the other packages that they're shipping right now for our moms and the smut books they like. So YBM Club. It's now live. You can get 50% off legacy membership pricing through December 30th. January 1 goes to normal pricing. YouthBaseballMidwest.com. Click on the YBM Club tab. Sign up today. You can get really exclusive content for you. And if you do get in there, you can see some of them GAC rankings, but you got to be part of that YBM Club. Huge shout out to Miss Sandra French, Sandra, Mrs. French, Miss French, whichever one. I did not open the card, but it's got a cardinal burn on it. This right here, I don't know if you guys can see this. It's already got spots missing. That's because I have already dipped into the fudge. Thank you for your support of watching my podcast. I really, really do appreciate the kind words that you have. I'm excited this is the first time we've brought on a coach, a college coach at the junior college level. He's local to us. He's a coach down at Jeffco. Coach Bone, if you can introduce yourself and give us a little bio on Coach Bone and a little history of yourself.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. This is my 6th year at Jefferson College, so we're an NJCAA Division I school, which basically means we give tuition, book fee, and housing money is really the differentiator between the NJCAA levels. So sometimes the perception, I think, is that, it's all junior college, and to some extent that's true. They're all 2-year schools. For us, and really at any level, the differentiator. So your Division I junior colleges would be, they give tuition, book fee, and housing money. Your Division II schools would give tuition, books, and fees, but no housing money. And then your Division III junior colleges would be no athletic scholarship money. So we are a Division I junior college in Region 16. We could compete with the other 8 Missouri Division I junior colleges. So this is my 6th year here. We're located in Hillsboro. Had a lot of really good players out of the St. Louis, Eastern Missouri area, and really all over the state. I previously played here in 2004 through 2006 for Coach Oster, which was wrapping up his 26-year head coaching career here. Coach for a year with Sam Carroll. I also played at Nicholls State University prior to starting here at Jeffco. I was the head coach at Herculaneum High School for 10 years, and I also coached the Festus American Legion program for about 20 years, 10 as the head coach. So been all over Jefferson County, very blessed to be in the situation I'm in, and, getting ready for spring of year 6 here at Jeffco.
And when you were at Herky, were you just the baseball coach there, or were you a teacher there as well?
I actually taught high school special ed. I was there for 14 years at Herculaneum. I taught high school special ed. For 12 of those, I did something called Jobs for America's Graduates, which is a great program, but probably needs its own separate podcast to go through. So done a few things in that realm. So I was in public education for a very long time, and really enjoyed my time at Herky.
Did you do all three of them together, or was there some compliance issues with that? Could you? Because I thought that you coached Herky's baseball team and at some point coached at Jeffco too. Is that accurate, or did I make that up?
No, yeah, because the seasons are obviously the same
Same.
time. So, yeah, so I coached the high school Herculaneum for um, worked at Herculaneum for 14 years. I was the head baseball coach there for 10. So did that along with the summer baseball at for about a 10-year period where I was the head coach of both. Helped my father with the Legion program since I was 19 years old. So had a lot invested in that. And then when I moved here to Jeffco, I gave up both the high school and the Legion stuff. Continued to work at Herculaneum during the day for my first 4 years here. But yeah, I was doing a little bit of both here and there, but never all three together.
I guess I just made that up. You were working for the school district and coaching at Jeffco. Got it. Yeah,
That is correct.
I was like, there's got to be compliance issues with that because of the potential student athlete recruiting things. I was like, I don't know why I made that up, but at the end of the day, if you make stuff up, you believe in, I guess, your own thoughts. I have no idea.
No
So
big deal, man.
Jeffco, and I graduated high school in '98. I got a chance to play against Mark Burley. The first time I ever really had the luxury of hearing about Jeffco was kind of because of Mark Burley. At the time, it was about Forest Park, Flo Valley, and Merrimack was kind of in the St. Louis area. I'm a Rittner High School kid over there by the airport. So, for us, it was always about the three St. Louis community colleges. Mineral Area College was a solid program. You had Three Rivers and Crowder, right? Crowder,
Yep, that's correct.
that I had heard about, I guess, because when they were recruiting me, I didn't really get recruited by Jeffco. And then Mark Burley had gone there, and obviously we've heard what he's done. He's eligible for a Hall of Fame opportunities. And so that's the first time I've kind of connected with Jeffco was through Mark Burley's experience. And you guys have had a ton of success at Jeffco. I think in my opinion, a lot of years kind of not really discussed, but over the last probably 10 to 15 years, I would say that you guys are really starting to get or have been getting really known around the area and country for the ability to play baseball and get to Region 16's championship series. You're competing every year. You're sending out D1 athletes left and right. You're getting draft picks. When do you think it was a big change for Jeffco and kind of the status that you guys have as a community college?
So Dave Oster was the coach here for 26 years. He was not the first head coach here, but he was the longest tenured for sure. And Coach Oster's in the NJCA Hall of Fame. He's in the St. Louis Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame. Had a tremendous career here, and I think that's really the foundation for what Jefferson College baseball is today. Talk about recruiting Mark Burley. He played for Coach O here. There's been 7 guys that played at Jefferson College who played the big leagues. So I think the foundation's been set for a long time. When Sam Carroll took over 2000, starting with the 2007 season, they won the region 3 times during Sam's time here. Went to back-to-back Junior College World Series in 11 and 12. Sam is a tremendous baseball guy. And he's also smart enough to hire a guy named Pat Evers, who's the head coach at Maryville University now, but was a recruiting coordinator and pitching coach here for Sam, and then was the head coach and took them back to the Junior College World Series in 2018. So I think, Kevin Mulder was here for 2 years before he joined PBR Missouri. So, I mean, there's certainly a lot to, there's a certain standard to uphold for Jefferson College baseball, and certainly feel that as the head coach walking around the building, a lot of success here over the years. And, junior college baseball, how you view success, I think, can be viewed through a couple different lenses. It can be on the individual player side. Are guys getting better? Are they creating opportunities for themselves to go to the 4-year level at maybe an opportunity they didn't have out of high school, or maybe, if they're a kickback at their previous stop. And then also on the team side, what's it look like? Everybody likes to win. Everybody's goal is to win. So for us, I think the idea and the goal is to do both. We want guys to come in here and get better, obviously, and create value for themselves that they probably didn't have previously. And we also want that to translate into winning baseball games. And I think, it's been a very long time here, and recruiting's changed a ton. So, to compare 40 years ago where guys were going to now is probably a fool's errand. But I think, the foundation's been laid by some really smart baseball people here. And, our goal is obviously to continue that.
And then, so it's not what I'm hearing. It's been a culture driven, and like the coaching tree, if you will. Like Andy Reid has all these, coaches that coached under them that are now head coaches in the NFL. And I think about that's what Coach Oster did for you guys, is that you've had this experience. These guys are coming back. You came back because of your experience that you had with the program. And I'm sure that you have probably the opportunity. I know how this works. I've coached college ball before, so I know that sometimes people call you and be like, "Hey, are you interested in this other job?" And to me, it sounds like culture has been set at Jeffco, and then there's a standard that every one of your coaches have bought into. I think Coach Evers has taken that with him to Maryville. You have that right now for your experience that you had there, and then you're coming back. Do you think that that's just the history of or do you have that same feel that, like, I have to uphold this culture that Coach Oster had set? Or do you kind of take that and instill in your own methods as well?
Well, I think it's, there's certainly an expectation, at least inside the building here, that, Jefferson College baseball should be really competitive, and has been for a very long time. So you certainly feel a little bit of that. I think as an alum here, I certainly take a lot of pride in that. Coach Oster and I, we're the only head coaches here in the, as far as I know in the history of the program, who played here and coached here. But there were some really, really good baseball guys in between us, obviously, not just on the head coach side, the guys I mentioned, but, Carrick Jackson, who's the head coach at the University of Missouri, was an assistant here. Joey Hawkins, who's the head coach at Missouri State University, was an assistant here. Connor Gandassi, who's a recruiting coordinator at the University of Minnesota, was an assistant here. So there's a long tradition of really good baseball guys, being here at Jefferson College. And I think, I think you don't want to let the alumni base, you don't want to, let the tradition down. Our goal is obviously to continue the success the program's had. I think, every coach is going to do things a little bit differently, and they're going to do what they think is right. They're going to do what I think is hopefully authentic to them. So there are certainly some things that are different now that I'm sure there were under previous coaches. But, the bottom line is the same. It's to get guys in here who are good players, help them become better players, help them create value for themselves, show them how to play winning baseball, and then get that to translate on game day.
Yeah, one of the things that my head coach told me at WashU was the assistant coaches make me. He didn't say it like that. He gave some much more detailed information, but it struck me because I'm thinking, you're a phenomenal head coach. I had this luxury too with the softball side, and they would say the same things, is that I need a great staff around me that makes me better as a manager, because there's trust that gets involved. And you just talked about several names at Mizzou, at Mo State. They've obviously doing a good job. Carrick's recruiting aggressively here in Missouri. You just saw that with his most recent recruiting class. And I just think about that, and I'm like, everybody that you surround yourself just kind of elevates you as a head coach. Is that what you're experiencing here right now with your group?
Did you play for Lessman at WashU?
No, I coached there. So I'm a Missouri Western guy. So I went to Rittner High School and went to D2 up in Missouri Western with
Sure. Yeah.
I forgot my coaches. It was before Buzz got there. It was Oh wow. He just passed away just a couple years ago. It was interesting.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. But
no, it's gold. So I remember Lessman from pitching instructions and being a catcher, and I would catch for coaches. And then over at UMSL, I had guys that when he left WashU went to UMSL and worked with Brady over there at UMSL. So I have some relationships with Lessman.
Sure. Rick is a legend, man. He, national champions at Merrimack in 79, I believe. And obviously I think I derailed your your questioning there a little bit, but I was just curious because, like I said, Rick is a legend. I don't know how many guys, and that's something that I think is important, man, is that people, guys like Dave Oster and Rick Lessman and people who were, really critical to the foundation of honestly all amateur baseball in the St. Louis area. I don't know how people talk about that anymore, but getting back to your question, I think, the game has changed in some respects, and in some respects it hasn't. Obviously, the recruiting side has changed. There's the transfer portal, which is kind of a catch-all term for the fact that guys can transfer and play instantly from one four-year school to the next, or one Division I to another, which didn't used to be the case. Some different rules on redshirting. There was, we had COVID eligibility for a very long time that just made college baseball older and older. On the development side, obviously there's more technology. There's more ways to quantify things than there were before. So there's certainly some things that have changed, but I think some things that haven't changed are, I think players still choose junior college because of the opportunities that it can produce, or that they can create for themselves. I think is probably a better way to put it. By in some ways betting on themselves. So there's certain things that haven't changed on that end. I think kids still want to be coached. I think they still want to improve. I think that they may want to know the why behind things more than maybe they did years ago, and there's less blind compliance, but I think that's a good thing. I think as coaches, we're never going to be the most important development time any player is going to have is going to be the 21, 22, 23, whatever it is, hours they spend outside the facility each day. I think our goal is to arm them to be their own best coaches. So, that part of it I like. I think kids are more inquisitive. They have a better baseline understanding when they come in. So there's certainly some things that are different from when I played or when I started coaching. A lot of that in a good way, and maybe some in not such a good way, but there's still a lot of similarities too.
I had to send snail mail and VHS in my recruiting videos. So that was very different than today's recruiting opportunities. Do you think, just kind of going into the recruiting process, the transfer portal, we don't have to really discuss that because it's a D1 thing, but the trickle down from that, do you see, how is that impacting a junior, senior in high school with maybe some of the trickle down effects of the changes with roster sizes in D1? How has that impacted, I'm going to assume, I don't know this because I haven't talked to a D2 coach, but I would imagine that it's impacted D2, maybe some of those kids now getting recruited at the D2, maybe even D3 levels. But ultimately, what does that do for the junior colleges? Does it get even that much more competitive at the junior college level to be recruited, where before you could start as a freshman and now maybe you have to sit a year even at the junior college level? Are you seeing a big trickle down?
That's sure. There's certainly a lot to unpack in that. So the idea, honestly, the biggest thing that has changed on the recruiting side, people will say transfer portal. And like I said, that's kind of a catch-all term because, the portal itself, yes, is a great way to get, because it used to be if a kid was going to transfer, he was calling from a 4-year, he was calling his high school coach, his travel coach, his summer coach. He was calling whomever he could to try to get the word out there. Well, now with the portal being in place and coaches being able to log on and see who's transferring, that's obviously made that easier. But I think when people say that, what they really mean is that the ability to transfer from a Division I to another Division I. Now, you still can't do that mid-year, which is why I think you see a lot of guys that are electing to go to junior college after the fall semesters, because you still can't be eligible. And that's not always commonly known, but I think it's probably something that everybody should know. You can't be eligible as a mid-year transfer at the Division I level. So there's still, at least not right now. So there's still guys that make that decision at break. But I think what you would see years ago was if a kid went to a Division I school out of high school, they redshirted, they didn't get a chance to play, and they weren't going to come back, or maybe they played a little bit and didn't get as much time as they wanted. If they were going to transfer, they either had to sit out for a year or they had to drop down a level, whether that was to a Division II, JUCO, whatever. So a lot of those underclassmen were going to choose that junior college option. That's changed a little bit. So I think really what it's done is it's kept some of those guys at the Division I level. They're just transferring to a different school at that point. And absolutely, a lot of factors like that, roster contraction, which is I won't get into that today. I think there's probably some misconceptions about what that means right now out there for a lot of high school kids, because I get that question a lot whenever we have people on campus. But there is going to be a roster cap eventually at the Division I level. That's going to squeeze. It was 35 prior to COVID, although there wasn't a cap on what you could have on day one in the fall back then. So they've taken it down to 34 on December 1st, which people have gotten used to the 40-man cap and bring guys, some of these programs bringing in 60 guys in the fall. That's going to change a little bit. But the bottom line is it's going to be very similar to what it was before the COVID restrictions expanded the rosters. You're going to have 34 guys that are able to be on a Division I roster, really as they get into the fall semester. So yes, that is definitely going to push some guys, if you want to consider it, down a level. Now, I also think another huge misconception I think players see is they sometimes believe, well, I don't have the Division I offers that I want right now, so I'm going to go to a junior college or a Division II or Division III, and I'll just play right away. I think I would really encourage any kid that thinks that to come watch Jeffco Crowder on a Saturday. Go watch, Maryville and the University of Indianapolis on a Saturday in a Division II game. Go watch Webster and Wash U on a Tuesday, and get a serious evaluation of whether you think. And I'm not saying that that shouldn't be the goal for every player to walk on campus, but I think if a lot of times if a player just thinks, well, it's not Division I, so I'm going to play right away, that player typically doesn't have a really good understanding of what that level of baseball really looks like. So I always encourage kids to really evaluate that for themselves, because it's definitely getting more competitive, man. You mentioned some places, Flo Valley and Forest Park don't have baseball programs anymore. It's all centralized at the Merrimack campus. That's 70, 80 college roster spots that no longer exist, right? Lindenwood, Belleville used to have a baseball program. That no longer exists. The school closed down. I'm going to lose McMurray, which was a Division III program in Illinois, used to have a baseball program. The school closed down. There is a lot of contraction going on in general, and you probably have to be a better baseball player on December 9th, 2025 in order to play college baseball than maybe you've had to be in a very long time. Just because there are fewer roster spots out there, there's fewer programs out there in some sense. They're cutting down on the ability and the desire, I think, for people to bring in 50 and 60 guys in the fall. So it has gotten more competitive. Now, I think on the other side of that, when you talk about the selling point for junior college baseball, has always been, in my opinion, based on a couple of things. One is that you get the opportunity to compete against kids your own age. And I think if you just take the average may not be the right word, take a general student athlete, a general baseball player who has Division I aspirations. Well, if they don't have those opportunities out of high school, then they have some decisions to make. And I think the selling point for junior college becomes, okay, if I feel like I'm going to go to a Division II, Division III, an AIA school, and that's my ultimate goal, is to play at that level, there is nothing wrong with that. I think there's tremendous baseball played at all levels all over the country. You can get a great degree of a great program. You can get drafted out of there. You can create a lot of opportunities for yourself in the baseball world. There's no doubt about that. But I think players also need to understand that if their goal is to get on the field as a 19 or 20-year-old in the spring of their freshman or sophomore year, that's going to involve them being better than a kid who's 22, 23, 24 years old at that level. And I think, you played college baseball, so did I. You'd probably agree. I was a lot better player at 22 and 23 than I was at 19. Now, that's not the case. That doesn't mean that no freshman, sophomore will walk in and play at those levels. But we always encourage our guys, even our kids at Jeffco who are going out, I guess they're not really kids at that point, but they're going out to the 4-year level, to do some roster research. Go through and see, if they're telling one of our guys, hey, look, you're going to be the starting shortstop, or you're going to be the starting center fielder, but their starting shortstop's back and he was an all-conference guy last year and he's a senior, maybe they're not being truthful about how you really create those opportunities for yourselves. And that happens out there. I'm not calling anybody a liar, but I think there's coaches that sometimes have a tendency to oversell or maybe overpromise what they could really deliver on some things. So I think it's really important for players to understand that if they choose to go to junior college and create some of that value for themselves, then those opportunities, they're going out and competing against guys who are most of the time going to be 19 or 20 years old, just like they are when that spring rolls around. Sometimes you occasionally get a third-year guy, but it's pretty rare in junior college. So I think that's one aspect of it. The second part of it is it's the opportunity to transfer to a Division I school if that's your goal and you didn't have that opportunity out of high school. And sometimes coaches at the NAIA D2, D3 level, they they'll tell guys like, hey, you could transfer Division I from here, and that's absolutely true. You can. It doesn't happen very often. There may be one guy every 5 years that transfers from a Division II up to a Division I school at any particular individual school. It's just not a very common thing. So here, and typically for guys, that Division II NAIA D3 coach, he's not trying to help you get to a Division I. He's not trying to help you. He's not, texting guys saying, "Hey, come take my starting shortstop next year." That's a bad career move for most coaches at that level. And on our end, the goal is to help guys obviously create that opportunity, but then go out and help them get it, which is to help them pursue those opportunities. So it happens a lot more, for guys whose ultimate goal is to play Division I baseball. If they don't have those opportunities out of high school, going to junior college is still the most likely scenario, the most realistic way that's going to happen for the vast, I would say 99+% of high school players. So those are some of the selling points, man. I think, there's a lot of clutter out there in the recruiting world. There's more people than ever who are, have a say. Kids listen to more people than ever. And I think that's fine. But I think sometimes it's about filtering out the noise a little bit and really getting down to what matters to each individual kid.
Yeah, you brought up something I thought that was important because it's my job as a coach, as a instructor, programmer, somebody that's trying to help somebody through the recruiting process or give information. My experiences of what I have at college, I try to express to everybody. I was a pretty good player coming out of high school. If I could go, I don't regret decisions I made because I love every piece of what I went through. However, if somebody did ask me, what would you do differently in your time? And I would have said I would have went to junior college. I think the key to that was when I walked into Missouri Western, I was playing games with what I would consider a grown man at 17 years old. I graduated high school at 17. So when I played with a 22, 23-year-old, we're talking different things. We're talking the social life's very different, right? And then the influence is very different in social life. And then I had to compete against somebody that's got 4 years of working out, the weight room, the nutrition, all the guidance that I never had up to this point. I don't miss that conversation when I talk to kids, but I think I took it for granted, saying junior college could be a route for a kid that, he throws 86. We just talked about it the other day. He throws 86, 87, and he wants to be a D1 player. But the decisions that he's making, he's a highly educated kid. Like, what is the end goal? Because he probably, in my opinion, I don't think he's going to make it to the big leagues, at least based on what he's at right now. Now, when he's 24, I can't, who knows what the growth will be in 7 years from now. But I never really actually sat and thought about playing against 18 and 19-year-olds versus 18 and 23. Yes, it's on my mind, but I actually never was as detailed as a key motivating decision-making skills, I guess I should say, are in the decision-making factors. I'm just like, junior college is the route because you have the better opportunity to play right away. That's the go-to, right? Like that's the simple thing for me to say. I never really thought about what would you rather play against, an 18-year-old or a 23-year-old? Who would you rather fight against, a 23-year-old or an 18-year-old? I know that there's some 18-year-olds that can go out there and kick some 23-year-olds, but at the end of the day, how many freshmen are starting in SEC? How many freshmen are starting at Mo State? Caden Bogenpole is one of the rare kids that you'll see going down to Mo State and freshman player of the year. You don't see that often, right? So I always have encouraged my athletes, even on the softball side, to try to encourage junior college is not some lesser education. It's not some lower programs. It is super competitive, and especially on the baseball side because of some of the rules for MLB draft guys. Like, is the draft thing still like if you go to D1, do you still have to be like 21 and a junior or a junior? Is that still the thing?
There's 3 years out of high school, or there's a birthday rule. I'd be lying if I said I knew what it was, honestly.
Yeah, I don't either. But
but yeah, you can hit a certain age as being 2 years out of school.
But you can be a freshman. You could come in as a freshman and get drafted as a freshman out of JUCO, right? Like you compete your freshman year,
You
and then
could. Yeah, I mean, you could, just to be honest, man, like, excuse me, the contraction of the draft has taken some of that away.
it's fair.
When junior college baseball in the 90s, even early 2000s, when I was playing, draft and follow was still a huge thing. Guys would get picked, was a 50 or 50 plus in some case round draft. Teams would take guys, they would, a kid may be committed to Arkansas or Missouri. Well, that kid would get drafted. The drafting scout, this is before you could really have a ton of advisors, agents involved, would tell them, hey, look, go to junior college. They own that player's draft rights up until the next, the following year. And they brought that back with the last collective bargaining agreement, the draft and follow, because they got rid of it for a little bit. But honestly, it doesn't have a huge impact because in a 20-round draft, there's only so many guys from junior colleges that are going to get drafted each year. There's a few. I don't know how in depth you want to go on that, but some of it is, in a lot of the major league organizations are using draft models now. Data is in-game data specifically is a very important part of that. Not hitting Rapsodo data you might get off the hack attack in the cage or necessarily bullpen data, although that can be, but more like, can you get TrackMan style information or feedback, Yak or Tech, whatever it is, inside a game situation. Fewer junior colleges have that, so it's made it a little bit harder. And again, you're having a shorter draft in general, so it is an option for sure. Look, I don't think junior college is the right decision for everybody. I truly don't. I think there are kids whose social, academic, baseball goals do not align with junior college. And I think that's okay because I truly believe in a lot of cases there is a place for pretty much everybody out there. Now, it may not necessarily be the place that player thinks he wants to go all the time. But I think when players really evaluate, like, this is what's important to me. These are the things I value when I'm looking at what my next 1, 2, 3, 4 years are going to be. Because, let's be honest here, man. It's gotten to the point where a lot of these are 1-year deals at most places, whether that's a junior college, Division I, Division II NAI program. I think, guys need to really evaluate what their long-term goals are, both personally and professionally, because, there's nothing wrong with making the right choice for you. And I certainly don't think junior college is the right choice for everybody. But I think for a subset of kids who have ambitions of playing Division I pro baseball, you kind of mentioned Caden Bogenpool. That's a great example. Caden's going to be a day one pick in the MLB draft. I think it's gotten harder and harder for players. Everybody gets excited, man, and I don't blame them. You work your whole life. You get that commitment tweet, commitment post to Instagram or whatever. And there's a lot of excitement around that, and I get it. And I think, then the fall starts and guys really realize what's out there from an ability standpoint. I think travel baseball has done a good job in some instances of showing people what the rest of the baseball world looks like. But there's still going to be an adjustment like we talked about, because typically in travel baseball, you're playing against kids your own age. And then all of a sudden you show up at 18 and there's a guy who's 22 or 23 playing third base or left field, or he's the Friday guy on the mound. And how that kid handles that in a lot of cases, I think really determines what that experience is going to be like. So if you're Caden Bogenpool or you're, you're going to be a draft type guy in a high school, you're a future day one pick. Like, yeah, I think that makes total sense because you're very likely going to walk in on day one and have a great opportunity to play. But I never really understood this expression, but I think this is what it means. Those are almost the exceptions that prove the rule, if that makes any sense. Because I think for most guys, there's more money in college baseball than there used to be, both on the player and the coaching side. You have, the rev sharing, the NIL stuff, coaches getting paid more than ever. By and large, man, at most programs, most 4-year programs, and really maybe some junior colleges, the idea that, you would go in as a freshman and, you would sit a little bit as a freshman, you play a little bit as a sophomore. And by the time you got to be a junior, it was kind of your time to be the guy. Those days are largely gone at the 4-year level, man. Like there's a lot of good players out there. There's a lot of opportunities out there for guys to go out and get talent, different type players. And there's pressure on these coaches to win. in most cases, regardless of level. So, the only real currency in this game for players is at bats or innings pitched. It's the chance to get on the field and compete and put some numbers together. So, I encourage most guys to, if you were to fast forward 2 years down the road, you really get about 2 years to kind of show people who you are as a player, and then it's going to sort of determine what your options are after that. In some cases, it benefits players to have 2 years of at-bats and innings pitched to the junior college level under their belt to create some of those opportunities down the line. And there are certainly guys who are going to benefit from walking into a Division I and being the guy on day one. I'm certainly not saying that there's nobody out there like that. And there's another group of kids who, if they have a good Division II, NAIA, Division III offer at a place where they want to go to school, they feel comfortable, they want to get an education, and they want to play competitive baseball, they should probably do it, even if it doesn't look as good, on the social media post, because ultimately, man, you're the guy that's got to live it when you make those decisions. You're the guy that's got to show up on campus and compete, both as a student, as socially and obviously as a player. So, I think the one advice I would give to everybody is decide what's important to you. If baseball highest level is the most important thing, I want to play at the highest level of baseball that I can, and I want to give myself those opportunities. Junior college can be a great option if you don't have them, but I don't think that's for everybody.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everybody. I used to say that all the time. There's a place for everybody, and I actually started wondering if there actually is that. And you said it, so it kind of gives me some hope that there's actually a place for everybody. But there's not that many. We have 40-something thousand graduates every single year, and 12 to 14,000 college freshmen, whatever, available spots. And so it's just, I see the difficulties, kind of getting into the next levels. And I think about the student athlete. I played Division II. My daughter played at UMSL. I actually tried to get her to go to Jeffco because I thought that would have been a great experience for her. She ended up going to UMSL. Actually not a scholarship athlete. I think she was on her way to Jeffco when UMSL's coach called her and said, "Hey, I got a invite or whatever." I lost my train of thought on what they call the non-scholarship athletes, a preferred walk-on. Thank you. Yep. And by the end of fall, she had $500. Little small scholarship, but she didn't have but 6 at bats. She was 0 for 6, and then next year she got like almost a 50% scholarship, all because of her leadership skills and her ability and desires to be the ultimate teammate. And you just never know what the right solution is. She didn't have a successful college career, but she ended up playing there. She's part of a Hall of Fame class. She was a different role that she had played for that team. She battled injuries, so be it. Who knows what her career would have been like if she went to Jeffco? Does she have the same, injuries there or CMU? And, you don't think about those things. You have to make the decisions that you feel like you can show up to practice every day and want to be there, because I think it's super difficult that, kids think for whatever reason they can practice twice a week because that's what we do in the club scene, right? They get to high school and they're tired at the end of their 3 months. And I'm like, you guys have no idea what college is about. You're complaining because you have to work a part-time job. You have to train, you have to go to school, and you have homework, and you have all these things. I'm like, this gets worse, in my opinion, at the next levels because of the demands that we have on these kids. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you have got to be mentally prepared. And it can't just be about the physical skills that I give to these people. I have to mentally challenge these folks to drive to be the best they can be. You talked about kind of the ages, various levels of play. And I wanted to bring this up. It wasn't an original question, but you've got some experiences at the junior college level. You have some experiences at high school. You have some, Nichols is a Division I school, correct?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. What do you think is the best student athlete level? So the kid that doesn't have the professional aspirations is looking for the best student athlete atmosphere. D1, D2, D3, NAIA, or JUCO? That's
a tough question. If you're talking pure academics, I think there's obviously the Division III level is really kind of known for the academic side of it. Having said that, I think, and I don't want anybody to mistake what I'm saying here. There are some really, really good Division III baseball teams out there. We have two of them, here in the St. Louis area. Webster and WashU are two of the best Division III programs in the country. At the D2 level, you have Maryville, UMSL, two really good Division II programs. Obviously, you go out to Warrensburg and Central Missouri is a top 5 program every single year. Some good. Missouri Baptist has a tremendous NAIA program. I think it's really hard to say like what's the best level for it because there's so many different factors in there, man. I think it's a lot of it can be individual to the school. Like you could play competitive baseball at any level as long as you go to a program that plays competitive baseball, and then I think it's really, evaluating like how do you feel like you fit in there. The social aspect is one. And I sometimes think of the social aspect a little differently because I think at the tail end of what you were saying there about, adjustment from high school to the 4-year junior college level is like, I think how that player is going to handle showing up on campus. And yes, the time commitment is different. And I think when you talk about some of the numbers there, there's X amount of high school graduates versus X amount of roster spots. There's probably fewer people out there that want to play, that really want to play college baseball or college softball than those that think they want to play college baseball or softball. And you're right, man, especially if you go to a small, there's not a ton of glamour in this. If guys want to go play at LSU, yeah, me too. I get that. There's a lot of glamour at that. But like, I think when you start evaluating, look, there's going to be less. It's a less glamorous level. The travel is different. It's usually not as good. There's Domino's pizza on a bus ride home at 11 p.m. sometimes. I got to get up and go to class the next day. There's certainly that aspect that there's an adjustment to. And I think the other side of it is you're talking about in a lot of cases, guys or girls show up on campus and for the first time in their life, maybe they're no longer the best player on the team. And maybe they're not one of the best players of the team. Maybe maybe you're the backup at a certain position, or you're the third guy, or maybe you're the 14th guy on the pitching staff in baseball or whatever. And like, I think the question is how are they going to handle that? Because I think, there's so many great things about amateur baseball at this point. But I do think, man, that the proliferation of so many summer teams at each level sometimes gives players a false sense of how good they really are. And for a certain subset of kid, I think it makes total sense, for them to pursue those things. But, I think sometimes they walk on campus and we see this a lot. I think there's some players who certainly think, we bring them on visits and like, oh, well, I guess if I have to go to junior college, I will. And we'll tell them like, look, man, you're probably not going to be one of our best 5 pitchers here. Maybe one of our best 7 or 8. We like you. We think there's a lot to like in what you can do, and we think it's projectable. But don't get it twisted. Like, I mean, there's a lot of really good players on our team and in our league. So I think that can be really eye-opening for players and how they respond to that, whether it's a wide-eyed, I'm not sure this is for me moment, versus, okay, I realize I do have some work to do, and this is the avenue for me to do it, determines a lot about what the student athlete's going to think about that experience, regardless of whether it's Division I, II, III, NAIA, JUCO.
Man, I will tell you that now I want to have another call with you because I want to talk about travel baseball. I'm not going to bring that up because I think we'll spend another hour on here, and how you mentioned giving the false sense of hopes to young people because they play in a certain organization. They're telling you that they can get you recruited and all of these things. I don't think we should be doing that to try to sell people in coming to play for my high school team. I think what you need to do is invest in yourself. Your ROI comes from the work that you put in, not the name across your chest. I actually kind of go back to what's the name on the back. That's the dollar that you need to spend, is investing in you, in my opinion, versus investing in an organization. And I do think there's good organizations in this space. I do also think there's too many high school teams in some of our organizations too, because I'm watching guys play for an organization that think they're going to college, they have no idea. They don't even present themselves as a college athlete, because I do think it's very businesslike still. When you get to college, you can't have some of these goofy antics. You can't be cussing on the field. You can't be looking back at the umpire. You're not getting recruited kind of on those things. That's a whole nother conversation I think that I would love to have with you, because I think on the recruiting side, if you're there pounding pavement and you see a kid acting a particular way, how does that actually impact the recruiting opportunities? Before we get going, Coach, I did want to ask you about kind of the recruiting process and things that you guys look for, because I do think it's a little bit harder, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think on my end, and maybe that's because of my perception, I've learned a whole lot of information today on kind of just the process in general and what kind of coaches think. But data is such a big part of our game right now, and there's this big velocity chase, whether it's exit velo or pitching velo. There's a big chase in that number, right? I have to get to 90. This is kind of a two-part. How do you feel about data, and what does it do for the recruiting process? Maybe it's a three-part question, but are you more like for data floors versus data peaks? Like, so if a kid throws 85, right, but he's hit 90, what's more appealing to you, whether that's exit velos or pitching velos? Do you like the floor or the ceiling more in those kinds of numbers?
Well, I don't know that anyone's ever asked me that before. So it's a good question. I think, like, obviously there's a threshold for measurables at every level, right? So if, and I know that there's other things that go into being a good baseball player that are maybe immeasurable or harder to quantify. What I do know is this: if you throw 76 as a senior in high school, you're not going to the LSU, right? So, like, there is a floor, so to speak, for there's a threshold to admission at every single level. Okay. Now, the old scouting saying was, if he shows it once, it's in there. Okay. That was the thing that guys used to say, at scouting events, pro guys specifically standing around. If he shows it once, it's in there. So if a dude hits 91, but he's pitching at 86, like, the 91's in there. Okay. And I think, so then on objective measurables that I think you're trying to start figuring out, okay, well, if that's the ceiling, then how do we get it to where it's closer to the ceiling more consistently, maybe raise the ceiling just a little bit, while also ideally raising the floor with that. I think there's always going to be projection in junior college. If I tell players a lot on their visits, look, man, like, if a kid comes in and maybe he pitches 86, 87, 88. The velocity is not the most important thing for us. Now, again, there's a threshold for entrance, because I don't think you can just turn any kid who's throwing 72 as a 17-year-old into an upper 80s, low 90s arm. I do think it's easier than people probably realize to increase throwing velocity through some things that I won't spend a lot of time getting on. There's no magic tricks with it, but I think there's some things that are easier than maybe people realize. But are they a strike thrower? Can they spin the baseball? I think it's way harder to teach guys to spin it consistently than it is to get them to add 3 or 4 miles an hour. So those are some of the things that we're evaluating to go with it. Like, what's the breaking ball like? Is there multiple pitches? Is he a strike thrower? Can he locate the baseball to various parts of the plate? Does he have an idea of how his stuff plays? On the hitting side, does he know what he should swing at and what he shouldn't swing at? Does he get his best swing off and counts where he should? Is a pitcher able to get him out the same way multiple times throughout the course of the game without him making an adjustment? What's he look like on defense? Is he an athlete? Is he an up the middle type guy? Is there some projection inside there? What's the foot speed like? Is he a plus runner? There's some things that we can help on that side that will increase the foot speed. If you're a 7-7 runner, you're probably never going to be a 6-7 runner. So there's certainly some things that I think we have to evaluate as coaches. What's the threshold for admission? And then it starts, to your level. Like, look, for us, what do we think a guy needs to be able to do on the mound from a pure stuff perspective as a junior, senior in high school, for us to think that, hey, look, there's something there that we like. The next part of it is, how game ready is he? because no matter what anybody tells you, man, no matter what level, they want guys to walk on their campus that are ready to help their baseball team win immediately. That does not mean that there is no development taking place, that you're not trying to help guys get better, but there's not going to be a whole lot of places where they're going to teach you how to play winning baseball from day one. They're going to help you accentuate that skill set. But the idea that you come in with a skill set that will not help the team win and someone's going to invest 2 to 3 years in helping you get to that baseline level is just probably not true. So there's certainly some things we think are baseline price of admission type stuff. Like that's how you get in the door in terms of what you can do on the mound, what you can do as a hitter, what you can do defensively, what you can do as an athlete. And then for us, it's about, look, we already think these things are good enough to help us be successful. But we also know that it's going to get better in our program based on some things we have a track record of doing. So there's a lot that goes into that. I don't know that, I answered your question about floor versus ceiling necessarily, but I do know that there has to be a baseline floor in order. And to me, that baseline floor has to be whatever you think will help your program be successful when that kid walks in the door. And then how can we raise the floor and the ceiling a little bit to where not only can they do the same things they walk on campus with, but we start to accentuate those a little bit. I'm not saying it's going everywhere, but the old term project guy where, you saw a guy that, that there was maybe some rawness to it and you liked, those guys are fewer and farther between. Maybe you said, look, I love the arm speed. I love the foot speed. I like the bat. There's some pop in it, but there's a lot of swing and miss. Can we clean some of that up? That still happens, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of successful programs that have 12 of those guys. I think you're going to see them maybe have a couple with the understanding that there's so many good players out there now that I think most coaches' goal is to get guys who are already good players, and we're trying to accentuate that and help them understand the game a little bit better at this level and clean some things up, as opposed to thinking, well, we're going to go out and get some guys that we have to start on the ground floor from day one.
Man, I love that because you brought a lot of what my perception of a lot of that was the eye test is still a big part of the game. And not just so much data because you're watching the strike throwing and it's things that you are seeing. How can he help my program? I will tell you one thing and I'm going to end with this here. I've always thought I could polish a turd and I can't. And to take on projects. And I always thought that with my ego, I always could just get this kid over a hump and over a hump and over a hump. What I've come to realize, if you don't want it, it's not going to happen. And I tell you, it's become frustrating. I can't imagine coaching that. I couldn't imagine wanting to recruit that either. So, Coach Bone, this has been awesome. I want to get you on again, hopefully before you get super busy and getting into your season, or maybe it's after. I love this conversation because I think you gave a lot of information for our young high school kids. We just got done talking about the GACs on our YBM club. So if you haven't signed up for that, make sure you go over there, sign up for the YBM club legacy membership before January 1st, 50% off. But we have such a lot of talent here. And I know that you recruit heavily in the Missouri, in the state. And I wish you all the best. I want to get you on again because you give me a lot of details that I think our young people need to hear. Because I had some misconceptions on what some of the transfer portal was and or even the trickle-down effect almost. And I kind of want to maybe take just a segment and next time and kind of just talk about that a little bit more versus having a broad range of questions, trying to get to know you and then, our fans getting to meet you. Coach Bone, what does your schedule look like this year? 50-game schedule?
Yeah, so we're allowed 56. Just like the Division 1s and 2s in terms of total games. So we've got 56 on the schedule. And our first game is February 6th. So it'll be here before you know it. This is, we're getting to that time of year. School's winding down for the semester, and it'll wind back up soon. So really appreciate you having me, man. This was really enjoyable.
Yeah, Coach Bone, I'm going to get you on again. I'll text you in a little bit, man. Thank you again. And how can kids, if they're trying to get recruited, do you want them to reach out to you? Do you have a recruiting director, or do they have a website they can go to fill out a questionnaire?
Yeah, jeffco.edu through the baseball page has a recruiting questionnaire. My email is zbone, so zbone at jeffco.edu. certainly would encourage players to reach out. I think one thing I will say real quickly is, if you're going to do that to any coach, I would suggest you try to include game video if possible. Practice video, some of that sprinkled in there is fine too. If you have metrics, if you have a, radar gun in the picture, or a, pocket radar, or you have, Rapsodo or hitting or the hit tracks or whatever, I think that's good information to include. I think, I get it, man. The game changer videos that they cut, people like to send those. There's not a ton of, I'll just tell you from my perspective, there's not a ton of value in that. It's usually shot from the backstop. It's very small. Sometimes there's sun in there that you can't really see what's going on. Most of the time, I think and I know I'm prolonging this, but I think this is important, if you don't mind if I just say this part real quick.
You got it.
I think I really encourage you to reach out to coaches at places you were interested in. Okay. If you want to, baseball, softball, whatever it is. Okay. I also encourage you to include video with that. I also encourage you to lead that email with whatever you feel like your best skill is. Okay. So if that's, and just be, I don't know, I don't know if this is going to get me in trouble saying this or not, but like, it's the truth. So, you want to lead with what your baseball skills are. Okay. I firmly believe that and now maybe it's different if you're applying to WashU or Johns Hopkins or a really high level academic school, but I don't think you want to lead with, 2025 outfielder 3.9 GPA. Okay. The academic side I'm not saying it's immaterial. I think it's important, but it's not going to be the number one thing that coaches identify. A college coach, in my opinion, in my experience, is going to start with the players he believes he could play, that he believes could play at his program, at his level. Okay. Then he's going to filter that by what type of student are they? What type of person are they? What's the character like? It's not going to be flipped where they're going to start with a group of kids who are good students and good players and then try to narrow down how many of those guys can play at their program. That pyramid's inverted. It's guys that can play filtered by what type of student, what type of person are they, not what type of student, what type of person can they play. So my suggestion is to lead with your with your athletic tools first, whatever you think your best skill set is. 2027 left-handed pitcher, fastball 87 miles an hour. That's a good starting point. Okay. And if you have game video or at least high quality practice video that coaches can really see, because I get it, man. You got that picture of the triple you hit on Saturday on the game changer clip, and good for them for doing that game changer. But I'm not I think players see, well, I hit a triple, and I'm glad you hit a triple. I really am. I'm glad you're having success, but I'm not looking at the triple. I'm looking at what does the swing look like, and do I feel like it will play against the level of pitcher we see here, if that makes any sense, right? So I think it's really important that if you're going to send those emails, and I really encourage you to do that, lead with your most important tool, your best tool right now. Okay, you can include those other things about academics, character, things you're involved in, absolutely. But I wouldn't lead with that. Okay, and I would make sure that you get as much high quality video, ideally from a game, but if not, in a real practice setting, avoiding off a tee or front flip stuff if you can, at least in my opinion, as a hitter, off the machine or with someone throwing if possible. Because if you really want to get attention, to me, those are the things that catch my eye when I get those.
Coach Bone, I'm bringing you on in January. I'm gonna message you. I'm gonna bring this up again. I want to talk about that specific. That is absolute gold that you gave us. I appreciate that at the end. You have yourself a great holiday season. Merry Christmas to you guys and your family. And I'm gonna reach out because we're gonna continue what you just talked about a little bit more. Are you all right with that?
Absolutely, man. Look forward to it. I appreciate you having me.
Let's do it, man. Happy holidays. Have a good day.